Okay, Billy Boy, let's go over top of the stretch. Let's go over a horse's card first and see what all these readings may look like. And well, you got a card here. You got the name of the horse, how old it is. It's got this overall rating. Overall rating means absolutely nothing other than it's a relative rating for the horse's strength. It has no bearing on gameplay. If you had nothing else to go on, none of these values down here, you could always figure out who was the stronger horse, theoretically, based on this overall rating. Now, just like EPA, there's a bunch of race factors down here. You can see power ratings, just like in EPA. If this horse, Anarod's is going to run on dirt, its initial rating is a 22. If it's running on turf, there's no rating, which means it never raced on turf. And I guess that's true for most American races. They don't race turf, it's all dirt. This range rating right here tells you it's a favorable range to run in. So for each furlong that you're greater than or less than. So let's say the race was going to be 11 furlongs. For each half furlong extra, the rating drops by 1. So if this was an 11 furlong race, 1 furlong, there's 2 halves in that too, his rating would drop to a 20. If it was 12 furlongs, that'd be 4, it dropped to an 18. So that's how these ranges could affect the adjusted start power rating for a horse. And the wet track, he would go down by 1 if the conditions of the track was wet. Now, what are these down here under race factors? Let me see if I can focus this a little better. Okay, race factors. Pace is a rating that indicates the style that the horse is most likely to use when running a race. Horses that like to run up front of the lead will have higher ratings than those that prefer to sit back and make one closing charge. And it's 0 to 9. And if you got a horse that has a large number and likes to be in front, if the race turns out to be a fast race, he's probably likely to peter out at the end. But if it's a slow pace, then he might be able to steal one being in the lead because he'll have some stuff left at the end of the race. Vice versa, if that pace number is low and that it represents that the horse kind of likes to drop to the back of the pack and make one run at the end. If it's a fast pace, this sets up well for him because the horses that are out in front would theoretically peter out and let him come forward. And if it's a slow pace, it's unlikely that he'll be able to catch up to the horses because the ones in front will still be fresh. So that's how pace comes in. Form is the consistency of a horse. It's how much variation there is in a horse's performance from race to race. They go from A to E. An A rating is the highest form rating, which means you can pretty much bank that this horse will be consistent from race to race, where a rating of E will be very erratic. You don't know who's going to show up on any given day, and that's shown in the charts, and I'll get into that when we race. Wire is just a number from 0 to 9, and it kind of figures in if we have a photo finish at the end. Doesn't come into play very often. The other three things here, trip, class, and speed, they're all from 1 to 3. And they come in based on a chart that will tell you to use one of these 3 during the course of the race. And, let's say you roll and the chart says use the class number. Well, you just look at the class number on each horse that's in the race. And then on the final roll, the 4th segment, which is the final roll, you'll add this number or subtract it. Let's see, can they have negative? Yeah, or subtract it if it's negative from their final reading, which would indicate their final position. So they come into play, and it could be any one of these 3 that will affect the final number. And each horse then at the bottom shows how many starts. In this case, they had in 37. Jockeys are rated with two numbers. The first one is the ride. No, the first one is trouble, and it's an indication of keeping the horse out of trouble. There's a chart on one of the rolls that you have to check a chart to see if the horse, something happened to it bad, and one of them says check the jockey's ride rating. So you roll two dice, and if it's less than or equal to this rating, there's no trouble, and if there is, you'll have to look at the chart. The other one is for ride, and this can also come into play at the end of the race of affecting the final number. Just as trip, class, and speed can be added or subtracted to the final number for the horse, so could the ride ability of a jockey, but this is a 50-50 chance as to whether this number will be in play. So that pretty much goes over a card, and so I think the next thing would be to get into a race and show you how these numbers are used and figured in. Okay, what I'm going to do here is a demo, just to go ahead and play the race. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Narragansett Special Handicap. It was a race that was conducted on September 11th, 1937. It was 3-year-olds and up at the Narragansett Park. Narragansett. It was 9.5 furlongs, and the track was sloppy. Here are the races. I chose this because there's only 6 horses in it, so it'll let the demo go pretty quick. So you have the horse's name, the jockey. Since this is one of the packets that Lon and Top of the Stretch offers, these sheets are already printed up for you. In the 1937 pack or game that I bought, there's 50 races that he rated, and a whole bunch more horses. I forget how many altogether. But so all these sheets are filled out for you, so it makes it really fast and easy to get in and run all these races. So you have an odds column for each jockey. This is their trouble number. This is the number that helps them keep out of trouble if they roll a trouble roll. This is their ride rating we talked about in the earlier video. That will this number might be possibly added to the final speed figure roll to get the final finish speed. You can see the jockey factor if that comes into play. We talked about pace in this race. It looks like we have a bunch of horses around the middle of the pack that like to kind of stay in the middle of the pack, so we don't have any high numbers up to 8, 9, which would indicate horses that like to get out in the lead. These guys are all pretty equal except for this last one, the New Deal. His propensity would be, I like to sit out back and hope for a slow race so I can charge from the rear. So this should be a pretty good even race here because nobody really likes to necessarily get out in front here. They're all about equal. We talked about the trip, class, and speed, and I really didn't go over what those things meant. So just let me take a few seconds and I'll read right from the rules what those mean. Your trip rating is that's the propensity to stay out of trouble and get a clean and consistent trip around the track. That's what trip means. Class is performing at a high level of competition, and all these values are from -3 to +3. And then speed is the ability to flat out run fast all times. So if we look at this this horse right here, Seabiscuit, which is in this race, you can see that he has 3s across the board. So he's very good at staying out of trouble. He always has a tendency to perform at a high level, and he just has the ability to flat out run at all times. And the other horses are scattered around that. So if we look at the odds, you can see that Seabiscuit was a heavy favorite in this race right here. So that's what those 3 mean. So I talked about the card and some of the factors that could adjust the power rating of a horse. And this is a 9.5 furlongs race. If any of those horses' normal range was, outside of, if 9.5 was outside their normal range, it would have affected their power rating at the start, and it could have been reflected here. I could go back and look to see, but I'm not going to right now. The other thing that definitely probably affected this is that it's a sloppy or wet track. So that definitely would have possibly reduced many of the power ratings for these horses. And Lon has already reflected that in the start adjusted power rating. So you don't have to do that. It's already been baked into the game for you. And then we talked about form. This is the horse's consistency rating. You can see that it went from A to E. You can see most of these horses are not very consistent except for Seabiscuit, who's rated a B. The neat thing about this is you'll see these horses, you know, if they get a favorable roll during the third phase, I think it's the third phase of the race, they could adjust it would help adjust their power rating quite a bit, and we'll see that. And the wire, like I said, is for photo finish. So let me go through the race. I'm going to use, there's two versions to the game. There's a quick play and a full play. I have been using the full play just because I like to roll the dice, and I think it helps me visualize the race a little bit more. Like I said, the race is broken up into 4 segments, and these are the charts that we'll be using. Race segment 1, a race segment 2 that also will help us determine the pace of the race. Race segment 3, and also help us determine the race factor. And then the final segment 4, which is the final speed, which will really indicate to us the final finishing positions of the horses. So let me just go ahead and get into this game. The first one we're going to roll for is segment 1, and I'll record those numbers here in this column right here, this first break column. And we'll go right down the line. Aneroid, whose initial start rating was 20, and in this chart here, basically we're going to look and we're going to use the pace rating of the horse. And then we'll roll 2 dice and cross-reference and get a number here. So Aneroid's pace rating is 4. So let's roll the dice, and we get a 5. So we come over to the chart. 4 and a 5 is 16. So I'm going to record 16 for Aneroid. Next up is Calumet Dick. His pace rating is a D also, a D8. Let's see, 8 under D, or a pace rating, pace rating of 3. 3, and a result of 8 is 16. Same as Aneroid. Next up is Esposa. His pace rating is a 4. 4 and 8. Well, we know we just rolled that, so that's a 16 also. Got an even race here, breaking out in the first quarter of the race. Next up is New Deal, whose pace is 1. He doesn't like, but he rolled a 12 right off the get-go. So column 1 and a 12 is a 14. And we go to Seabiscuit. His pace is a 5. 5 with a roll of 10. So 5 and 10 is a 21. And last is Snark. His pace is 4. 4 and a 9. 4 and 9 is an 18. So all this is doing is helping us visualize what's happening in the race. For each number difference is a half furlong. So right now, Seabiscuit, being 5 numbers ahead, is 3 numbers ahead of Snark, is 1.5 furlongs ahead of Snark, who's in second place. Then you got Aneroid, Calumet Dick, and Esposito at 16 are a furlong behind Snark, and then the 4th horse, New Deal, is 1 furlong behind these 3 horses. And that's all that there is to the first segment of the race. So I'm going to flip the chart over to race segment 2. And basically, this is a roll using the pace rating of the horse again, and it's going to give you an adjustment to that first number. We're either going to you maybe subtract from that number, or it doesn't change, or it may add to the number. And this is the second part of the race, second quarter of the race. And again, all it's really doing is help us visualize who's leading, and really doesn't have much contribution yet toward the end of the race. That is about ready to happen, though, or adjustments to the start figure here. So let's go again. Pace of 4 for Aneroid. 4 and 7. 4 and a 7. You can see that's a 0. So he stays at 16. Next up is Calumet Dick. His pace is a 3. 3 and 10. 3 and 10 is a +1. So we increase his 16 to 17. He sped up a little bit in the second half of the race. Next up, Esposa with a pace of 4. 4 and 6. So 4 and a roll of 6 is a 0. So he stays at 16. Next up, New Deal with a pace of 1. 1 and 5 is a -2. 1 and 5 is -2. So he drops down to 12. He slows a little bit, but he likes to be there in the back. Next up is Seabiscuit, whose pace is 5. 5 and 9. 5 and 9 is a +1. Seabiscuit continues, probably will continue in the lead here. And last but not least, Snark with a pace of 4. 4 and 5 is a -1. Okay, so after race half over, Seabiscuit's still in the lead and has increased it from 2 or 1.5 lengths to 2.5 lengths now. 22 minus 17 is 5, divided by 2 is 2.5. And you can see that the other horses didn't move much. So things are just kind of progressing nicely here. Now, again, these numbers really don't have much effect on the end of the game or end of the race at all. It's, again, a visualization as explained in the rules to help you visualize the progress of the horse. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Remember, we have just completed the first 2 race segments. Although it's part of race segment number 2, one last thing we have to do is now determine the pace of the race. And the way we do that is to add together the 2 highest numbers here for race segment 2. So we have Seabiscuit at 22, and then we have 2 horses tied, Calumet Dick and Snark. So 22 and 17 is 39. So we come over here, as part of race segment number 2, there is a pace scenario chart. And it's going to help us determine how fast, if the race is fast or slow. So, like I said, 22 and 17 is 39. So what we're going to do is roll 2 dice and look in this column right here. You can see that if we roll a 2 through 8, the race is proceeding at a slow pace, and the blanks are normal, and we don't even have a chance that it can be fast. And it kind of makes sense, right? We got a sloppy track. So let's go ahead and roll the dice. We have a 7. Come over here to this column, and 7 says we have a slow race. So I like to come over here and right above here mark slow. And what does that do? Well, this is where we start getting some adjustments that will happen to our power rating, setting up the power rating needed to determine the winner at the end of the race. And that comes in this pace adjustment chart column. So we rolled, the race is slow. So now what we do is come over here to this pace effects chart. And it's only for races 8 furlongs and longer, and ours is 9.5. We have a slow race going. So we look at the number of points that the horse has accumulated to the race so far, and you put this number in the column, because that number is adjusting either up, down, or not changing at all the power rating of the horse. So let's start with Aneroid, who has 16 race points so far. We come over to the chart, and in the 15 to 16 range here, we can see that we should adjust that the pace effect rating should be a -1. So what we do is we put a -1 right here. At a 17 for Calumet Dick, his is also, let me see if I can adjust the focus here a little better. 17 to 18 is -1. We know that 16 for Esposa is -1. Let's see what 12 for New Deal is. 12 is a -2. So his rating will get adjusted -2 by the end of the race. Seabiscuit at 22. You can see now he's not getting hurt as much. He's running a fast race, but the pace is slow, or he's out in the lead, which is just what is good for him. He's out in the lead, so it's going to be hard for those horses in the back to catch up at a slow pace. So his rating gets adjusted 0, so we'll put a 0 here. And then the last one is Snark, and he's at 17, and we know that 17 is a -1. So that's the first adjustment to the power rating that we've made here that will affect the home stretch roll, a final speed roll, or the home stretch roll. So now we move on to the third segment of the race. This is where the form factor or the form rating of the horse comes in. And you can see, remember, the form rating of a horse is anywhere from A to E. So what we're going to do is, using the form rating of the horse, we're going to roll the 2 dice, and depending on the form rating, we'll find the row of the dice roll underneath whatever form rating they have. Okay, had a little blip there. I wanted to focus and accidentally turned it off, but anyway, we're back. Just an example, let's go back to Aneroid. His form rating is a D. He's kind of an inconsistent horse, E being the worst. So what we'll do is we'll roll 2 dice, and we'll look in column D. And let's say we rolled a 9. Well, you notice there's 2 columns here. One is for position, and the other is for power. So what's going to happen is, if we got the number here, is going to be used to either increase, decrease, or be unchanged this race 3 segment, the third quarter of the race. And again, all these numbers, all we're doing by recording these numbers are giving us a visualization as to how the horse race is proceeding. The second column is power. This number will be used, and it will be filled into the form adjustment chart column right here. Again, this number could affect the final power rating for the house or the horse when we get to the 4th segment, or the home stretch of the race. So rather than me blubbering it along, let me go ahead and roll the dice and show you how it works. The first horse up, Aneroid, is a form factor of D. So rolling the 2 dice, we get a 6. Going over here to column D, coming down to a result of 6, -1 position, and -1 to the power. So we come over here, and we reduce that by 1, 16 to 15, and we record a -1 in the form adjustment column. Next up, a form rating of D for Calumet Dick, D5. D5 is a -1 and a -2. So he goes from 17 to 16, and the adjustment and power rating will be a -2. Next up, Esposa. His form rating of D also. Boy, this is not good. D with a roll of 2. D2 is going to be -3 for both of those numbers. Not a good roll for Esposa. He is starting to falter. Next up is E, New Deal. And he's an E. And I talked about, how does this work? you can see that A rating horses, they have a range of -3 to +3 on their power, or -2 to +3 on their power rating, which means in a lot of no changes. And you can see as we go across the chart, that second power rating number, which is the most important one, there's a lot of blanks here, which means it wouldn't change and wouldn't hurt the horse and even help increase it. But as we keep moving across, the numbers get worse in that second column, except especially for your middle dice rolls, which are going to come up more. Now on the extremes, you can see here that a D or E rated horse can improve their power rating all the way up to 6, but they also can be a -3. So we talked about those ratings showing the consistency of the horse. Well, this chart has that built in really well to say, wow, even this horse, you don't know, like this E-rated horse, you don't know who's coming to the play this day, to the race. And this chart significantly reflects that, boy, on some days he could really, be running good, and other days he's not going to, and the propensity is big swings here for the final power rating. So let's roll for New Deal, who is an E form, E8. So E8 says nothing in the, or +1 in position, nothing in power. So not bad for him. So +1, he goes from 12 to 13, and he's got a 0 in this column. Next up, Seabiscuit, who is a B, B4. B4 is a -2 position and -1 power. So he slows down a little bit here, and a -2 on the power. And last is Snark. He has a D form rating, D11. Okay, this is going to be interesting. D11. You can see he has a +2 on a position and a +1 on a power. He just missed with a roll of 12. He could have increased his power by 6, and you'll see where that makes a difference here in a minute. So +2, +1. So he went up to 19 and +1, I said here. Okay, so after that is done, the next thing we have to do before we get out of this race segment is see which of our trip, class, and speed, or figure the race factors. Let me just put it that way. We do a roll to see what the race factors are. And this is where we determine which of these 3 ratings of the horse, the trip, class, or speed, come into play, and whether the jockey will come into play that can affect the final speed roll. So let's go ahead and we just roll 1 dice here for this thing. This is all part of segment 3. We rolled a 1. A 1 says to use the trip rating of the horse, and in this case we do use the jockey ride rating. So what we do with that is we come over here into these columns labeled the race factor adjustment and the jockey factor adjustment. So the race factor, or the attribute we use is trip. So we're basically going to transfer these numbers, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, and 1, over to this column. Everybody gets a 1 except Seabiscuit. 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1. And then jockey rating, or the jockey ride rating, comes into here. So we got a 2. See if I can keep it 2, 3 1s, a 2, and a 1. So they come over here, because all this will affect the final roll rating, speed figure roll. It'll affect the final speed figure roll. 2 and 1. Okay. The other thing we have to do here is to figure the final adjustment power rating. Again, all you do here is you take the start adjusted power rating, in this case 20, and add these 2 numbers in case they're negative here, so we subtract 2. So 20 minus 2. The final speed rating for Aneroid is 18. Next is Calumet. 22 minus 3 is 19. Esposa is 19 minus 4 is 15. New Deal was 13 minus 2 is 11. Seabiscuit started out at 22 minus 2 is 20. And Snark at 19. Minus 1 plus 1 is a 0, so he stays at 19. So let's rehash what's happened here and what we're setting up. After 3/4 of the race, Seabiscuit is a half length in front of Snark, who is 2 lengths in front of Aneroid, or a length and a half in front of Calumet Dick, and then Aneroid, and then bringing up the rear are Sposa and New Deal. Okay, now that's just the current positioning of the horses. What's really important is this final adjusted power rating, and you can see that Seabiscuit has a 20, but close behind or close to that 20 is both Snark, both Snark and Calumet Dick. And then Aneroid had 18. So this race is shaping up to be a pretty good close race, with Seabiscuit obviously in the better position, but anything can happen here. And when we roll to get this final speed figure, when we get the final speed figure, we will add these numbers to it to then get the final finish. So in the last segment of the race, the home stretch, all the things we've done up to now has pointed toward getting this final adjusted power rating, because this is the rating we will use to figure the final speed on race segment 4 chart, this final speed number, and also to figure out the adjustments to that final speed figure, to the type of the attribute of the horse that's figuring in this race, along if the jockey figured. So, just to show you, rather than talking again, let's start with Aneroid, who has a final adjusted power rating of 18. So what we do is we take, again, very simply, roll the 2 dice, and he gets a 3. Now, bigger numbers are better here, so this is not good for Aneroid. So 18. So we come over to the speed figure chart, and we go to column 18, and we go down to where 3 is, and his speed roll, his speed figure is 83. So we come over here, we put 83, and then his adjustment is 1 plus 2 or 3. 83 and 3 is 86. So his final finish speed points are 86. Next up, Calumet Dick, a good roll here at 19, could put him right up to the front here. 19 with an 8. We go to column 19, we come down to row 8, 93. So we put 93 plus 2, his final figure is 95. Next up is Esposa with only a rating of 15. 15 and 8, we come to column 15, and 8 is an 85. Plus 2, 87. Just nosed out Aneroid there with a decent roll, even though the rating was 15 compared to 18 for Aneroid. 11 for New Deal is probably not going to have much of a chance. You can see the odds here. He had the lowest odds of anybody to win. So he rolled 11 plus a 3. So we come down to column 11. Row 3 is only a 69. So we come over to 69 plus 2, 71. Now Seabiscuit, who has a big rating of 20 plus 5 adjustment points at the end. Those are big. So, and he didn't get a good roll, but we'll see. A 20 with a 5, row 20. Come down to row 5 is 91. Oh, look at this. 91 plus 5 is 96. So, Seabiscuit is going to nose out Calumet Dick for first place. And this 1 point difference is just, I think, a half a length. I'll check that here in a second. And, of course, we can't count out Snark. With a good roll, he might be able to sneak in there, too. Snark at a 19. Well, 6 probably is not going to get it, but column 19 and a roll of 6 is 91. 91, which was the same as Seabiscuit, but Seabiscuit had a good race factor. That's this numbers. That's these numbers over here under trip, class, and speed. And remember, we use trip, so you can see Seabiscuit kind of got a big boost from that adjustment. And he also had a good jockey that gave him some boost points. And so this comes out. This final one comes out to 93. So first place was Seabiscuit. I think half a length over Calumet Dick, who finished a full length ahead of Snark. Those were your first 3. Now it's kind of cool. He does include with the game as a payoff results chart. And if we go back here, Seabiscuit was a 4 to 5 odds. So 4 to 5 pays 360 for winning, 280 for placing, and 240 for showing. In addition, if you wanted to just make the results a little more random, more lifelike, with these additional charts can modify those dollar figures by rolling 2 dice, and just to give you kind of a randomization of payouts. You don't have to use this chart, but it just adds a little more if you're into that kind of thing. So in addition, if we flip this over, he does include a beaten lengths chart, and let's just go here, the 9.5 furlongs. If you are 1 space ahead, which is what Seabiscuit was, he won by one length. So each space is, 1 length is 1, and then it looks like each other is a half a length. So Seabiscuit, by winning by 1 length, 96 to 95, won by a length. But then Calumet Dick, who finished second and finished 2 ahead, at that point 2 ahead would be speed 1.5 lengths. So 95 to 93 is 2 lengths. We can come over here. The speed difference is 2 at 9. So the second place horse beat the third place horse by 1.5 lengths. So that just adds some more fun and realism to the game. In addition, he includes, you want to figure the race times of how fast they ran. We have race charts over here. We have a 9.5, a race time chart, 9.5 furlong race. Seabiscuit finished at 9 with a speed figure of 96. So 96 on the second column there gives us a finishing time of 1:56 even. Now, if we look at the real race, Calumet Dick won that with a 1:57 race time. Snark finished second, and Seabiscuit was third. So we had Seabiscuit, Calumet Dick, and Snark. So the only difference from our race and the real race was that Seabiscuit was able to power ahead of that. But let's see. Then Espinoza was fourth. Aneroid was fifth in my race, and finishing last was New Deal. So pretty darn close to the real thing here. So this is it, folks. This is my conclusion to the demo. Again, I used the Fullplay version of this game. I may try to video a quick play version. The quick play version basically does away with these 3 columns, and instead of adding 2 numbers here to determine the pace of the race, I believe you just take the 2 highest pace numbers of the horse, add them together, and then he has another chart for the quick play that would determine the speed of the race, whether it's fast, normal, or slow. So it does save some dice rolls, but I love rolling dice, so I tend to want to race with using this. And again, it helps me visualize how the horse race is proceeding. Any questions, just ask. Any corrections to what I did, please feel free to let me know. I haven't used the race the game that much. It's very conceivable I made a mistake, and usually when I'm filming like this, I do make mistakes. But hopefully this will give you a good idea of this game, Top of the Stretch. It is a very fun horse racing simulation that doesn't take much time and allows you to simulate a bunch of races very quickly. And like I said, it's just fun.